Our topic today is a sense of place, and I'd like to tell a story about a time when my sense of place was radically shifted. I was 18 and I was studying with my first Buddhist teacher, Zen Roshi, a Zen Master, and under his guidance I had been meditating for about a year, but I'd also been diving pretty deeply into Buddhist philosophy. I was reading the sutras and the shastras, the original words of Buddha and the commentaries. And in my studies, I had come across what I thought were these two competing notions of enlightenment. The first was that of the Bodhisattva. Now, that's a Sanskrit term. It literally means the enlightened warrior or the enlightened being. And Bodhisattvas are very far down the path, but they give up their own individual enlightenment in order to make this vow, the Bodhisattva vow, to come back to the world again and again in order to be of service. Now, in Buddhist cosmology, there are infinite worlds, infinite lives, so it's an extremely solemn and serious commitment. Now, the other concept was that of Nirvana itself. And at the time, I thought of it almost as a place, one that was characterized by a peace, tranquility, a blissful awareness, a state where you never again had to experience the sufferings of the world. Now, my problem was I wasn't sure which one I was supposed to be shooting for. I know. It sounds silly, but at the time it was actually getting in the way of my meditation practice. So I had the opportunity to have lunch with my teacher, with the Roshi. And, if you can imagine us sitting there in the temple, he had his shaved head and he wore the dark robes of Zen and he had this deep booming voice. And there I was, this gangly teenager, kind of an upstart, I'll admit that. And I still can't believe that I got up the nerve to ask him the question that I did. But at the time, I remember thinking, well, I'll just start it off rather casually. So I turned to the Roshi and I said, Roshi, when you die, are you going to attain nirvana? Or are you going to come back again as a bodhisattva? And the Roshi, in his great patience, with this very silly question, turned to me and he said something that I'll never forget. He said, this is nirvana. This is nirvana. Now, to say I was speechless doesn't quite cover it. I had been holding on to that web of conception so tightly that what he said actually cut through my net, and it allowed my ordinary thoughts to kind of dissolve away. And what was left was a kind of spacious awareness, a sense of clarity, a clear insight that I find difficult to describe even to this day. Now, needless to say, I didn't say another word throughout the entire lunch. But I've used what the Roshi said as a kind of touchstone for my own path. Because it was clear to me then, and it's clear to me now, that he wasn't speaking philosophically. He wasn't even really directly answering my question. Instead, what he was doing was reporting on his felt experience of reality, of the world. Now, if that's the case, it begs the question, why aren't we having a similar experience? I'm sure probably some of you are, so I should say, why aren't I having a similar experience? And what I've found is that most of the day, my attention, our minds are caught up in fantasies about the future, fantasies about the past. And I'm not saying don't reminisce, and I'm not saying don't plan for the future, but we get caught there. And what happens is it blocks us from having an experience of the present moment in all of its beauty. But that's not quite enough, because even in the present, if you look deeply, you'll see that there's a kind of veil between you, or between me, and the experience of reality. And that veil is all about psychological projections. I like to call it the hope-fear machine. If things are going well, I hope that they're going to stay well. If things are going poorly, then I hope that they're going to change. Maybe if things are going well, then I fear change. So that kind of hope-fear machine creates this veil that keeps me from experiencing the true beauty in even ordinary situations. But it is possible, it is absolutely possible to let all of that go, to simply let it go. Now, I'm not talking about repressing it. I'm not talking about pushing it away. This isn't battling your ego. It's simply opening up deep enough so that those conceptions drop away. And you don't faint, you don't pass out, You don't lose consciousness. But what's left over is a bubbling to the surface of this kind of spacious, blissful, joyful feeling that I was referring to earlier. And that I have to believe is very similar to what the Roshi was referring to when he said, this is Nirvana. So I invite you all, right now, to open your minds to this present moment and open your hearts to the possibility that you just may get a taste of Nirvana right here in this very place. Thank you.